guys, today we are going to be comparing and ordering rational numbers. Last week we did a lot of converting between fractions, decimals, and percents, and with our comparing and ordering lesson, we're going to be utilizing those skills that we learned last week to compare and order our rational numbers. Our rules for comparing and ordering. Step 1, convert everything to a decimal. So if we have fractions, decimals, percents, we want to make sure to convert everything to a decimal. Next, we're going to place them on a number line. All of our numbers will be placed on a number line. And then when we actually rewrite our numbers, we're going to rewrite them as they were originally written. So if we were given a fraction to begin with, when we compare and order them and we rewrite them in either greatest to least or least to greatest, we're going to rewrite them the way that they were originally written as a fraction. So our first example, it asks us to put these numbers in order from least to greatest. Notice that we have decimals, we have fractions, we have positives and negative numbers, and we've got to be able to put them all in order from least to greatest. When we do this, the first thing that I like to do is separate my numbers. I know that I am going to be converting them all to a decimal. So I'm looking at my first number, negative 5.6. It's already a decimal, looks great. 5 4/5. Last week we talked about ways to convert fractions to decimals. And the two ways that we learned or that we talked about were to convert by either top in, bottom out, by dividing our numerator divided by our denominator, or to compare to 100. And when it moves easily to 100, I like to do that. So I'm going to multiply my numerator and denominator by 20, which gives me 80 hundredths. And when I rewrite that as a decimal, I write it as 5 80 hundredths, or 5 8/10. My next number is 5.2. It's already a decimal. I'm going to leave it as a decimal. And now I'm going to do the same thing to my negative 5 1/2. 5 1/2 is 1/2 is a fraction that we're pretty familiar with in converting. So I'm going to go ahead and write that as a decimal. I think about that as half of a dollar is 50 cents. Now, I have all of my numbers written as decimals. My second step was to put them on a number line. So I'm going to draw myself a number line. I have both positives and negatives. So I'm going to write 0 right there in the middle. Now, my first number is negative 5.6. So I've got negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, and negative 5.6 is going to be about right there, a little bit over halfway between negative 5 and negative 6. Next, I have a positive 5.8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's my 5. Here's my 6. So 5.8 is going to be closer to my 6. My next number is 5.2. 5.2 is still going to be on the positive side, but closer to my 5. And negative 5.5. It's very close to that negative 5.6, but it's a little bit closer to my negative 5. Now I've got all my numbers plotted on my number line. When we were comparing and ordering integers week before last, we talked about how when we put our numbers on a number line, the further you are left, the less you are. Left is less. So if we're going from least to greatest, I can look straight on my number line at my numbers. I had negative 5.6. That's the furthest left. And it was originally written as negative 5.6. So I'm ready to move on to my next number. My next number on my number line was negative 5.5, but it was originally written as negative 5 1/2. Now I've got to keep moving, and my next number is 5.2. That's the way it was written for me. And lastly, I had 5.8, but I'm going to rewrite it as 5 4/5. So now I have my numbers in order from least to greatest. Next example, we have to place our numbers in order from greatest to least. I'm going to take each one of my fractions, decimals, each one of my numbers, so all of my rational numbers, and convert them all to decimals. 8.5, half was just like the one that we did on example number 1, and we are pretty comfortable with a half is 0.50 or 5/10. Negative 7.2 is already a decimal. Going to leave it like that. My next one is negative 6 and 17/20. Now, the negative 6, we're going to leave. And then our 17/20, I could divide numerator by denominator, top and bottom out. But again, if I can compare to 100 and make an equivalent fraction, it's going to make my life so much simpler because I can take 17 and multiply that by 5. I'm over here in Scratch World trying to multiply this out. 7 times 5 is 35. 5 times 1 is 5. 6, 7, 8. That gives me 85 hundredths. So I have negative 6 and 85 hundredths. That now is converted to a decimal. And 9.5 is already a decimal. So now I'm going to place these numbers on a number line. I've got positives and negatives, so I'm going to go ahead and put 0 in the middle. I'm going to start with my first number, 8.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 8.5 is right smack dab in the middle of those. Negative 7.2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A little bit further. So negative 7.2 is about right here. Then I have negative 6 and 17/20, which we converted to negative 6 and 85 hundredths. So here was my negative 6. Negative 6 and 85 hundredths is going to be between negative 6 and negative 7, a little bit closer to negative 7. And my last one is 9.5 on the positive side. Now, we are moving from greatest to least on this problem. So if I know that left is less, then I know that the further you are right, the greater you are. So I'm going to start at my 9.5, and 9.5 is how this was originally written. Next, I'm moving in the negative direction. I'm going less since I started with my greatest. And 8.5 is next, but I'm going to rewrite it as 8.5. I'm going to keep moving, and I have negative 6.85, which was originally written as negative 6 and 17/20. And my least number is negative 7.2. One thing I want to mention is please be very, very aware on if the question is asking to go greatest to least or least to greatest. One of the biggest mistakes that I see students do is they don't pay attention to the order that it's asked. Remember, we talked about this in class that we can't do the one that we just like the most. I like to go least to greatest. Does that mean I get to go least to greatest all the time? No. I always have to look and see what the question is asking for. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and like it. Bye.